Hi there, it's Timmy, and this is Timmy Watt and what have you. My beautiful wife Rachel with us today. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
All right, so today we're going to start the first of a multi-part series featuring all of our favorite rides, well, all the rides, at Disneyland Park in California. That includes Disneyland Resort itself and California Adventure. So we're going to just go through the list. We'll probably start with the stuff we know most of all and are most comfortable talking about. But we also did some research to kind of give you guys a good heads up as to what to expect with these rides and these attractions. So today's video, we're going to talk about the Disneyland Resort Railroad, and then we're also going to talk about Main Street vehicles. So we're going to keep these videos pretty short, hopefully 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll just kind of move on through the whole series with each week's episode. So let's get started today with the Disneyland Railroad, and I'll hand it over to my beautiful wife Rachel to give us the what for and the lowdown on the Disneyland Railroad.
So Disneyland Railroad is one of my favorites, and mostly that's a tradition thing. So let me start first with kind of the history of the Disneyland Railroad. The Disneyland Railroad actually opened on opening day, so it was July 17th of 1955. And for those of you who don't know, Walt Disney was very passionate about trains. That was one of his favorite things about Disneyland, and so he specifically asked for that railroad to be put in. He specifically had it put in. So he actually named, and you'll have to, as you're riding the trains, he actually had there are 5 different trains. He had them named specifically. 4 of them are named after railroading legends. There are C.K. Holliday, E.P. Ripley, Ernest Marsh, the Fred Gurley, and then the 5th one is named the Ward Kimball, and that's inspired after Walt Disney's passion. The engineer who inspired the Disney engineer who inspired Walt Disney's passion for trains. So that's just a little bit of history behind that. One of the reasons why I love the Walt Disney or the railroad so much is because it's always a family tradition. Now, I don't know how much Tim has told you about my family tradition going to Disneyland growing up. We went every other year or so growing up. My dad went, I think, the 2nd or 3rd year after Disneyland opened when he was a kid.
That's so cool.
I know. I'll have to show you some of the, I'll have to get from him, but show you some of the souvenirs that he has from way back when. But so he really inspired my love for it because he took us every other year or so when we were growing up. The first thing that we ever did each year when we got to Disneyland is we would ride the train. So as we were entering the gates of Disneyland, we would all be talking excitedly about what rides we wanted to ride first, and then Dad would remind us, we're riding the train first. And, we would all go, oh, Dad, why do we have to do that stupid tradition? But we always did it. And we did it, number one, because it was a tradition, but also just because, it had been a year, maybe 2 years at the most, since we'd been there. And just to kind of have that full circle view of Disneyland and remind ourselves what all is there, as if we could forget, right? But remind ourselves what all is there and what do we want to see this time? What do we want to ride? And sometimes we were tempted, as kids, to ride it 3/4 of the way around and get off at the last stop in Tomorrowland. But Dad was adamant that we ride it the entire way around, all the way back to Main Street. And then if we wanted to ride it back around to Tomorrowland, we could. But we usually then back off at Main Street. So that was a big, huge tradition for me growing up. And I've made Tim and Wyatt carry on that tradition since we go all the time. And
we continue to whine about it.
Yeah, they whine about it every single time. So they don't particularly like it, but I think they still enjoy it.
I get it.
They complain about it, but they still do it. They still indulge me in that. So a lot of it is just the memorabilia that comes with it, just the memories that come with it. So the Disneyland Railroad has 4 stops. You can get on at Main Street, USA. You can get on at New Orleans Square. You can get on at Toontown or at Tomorrowland. Now, of those 4 stops, Main Street is the only one that is not really wheelchair accessible, meaning there are no ramps. So if you are going to get on there, you do have to walk up and down the steps and leave your wheelchair or stroller, for that matter. There are a lot of steps at the bottom of the stairs and walk up the stairs. And then you would have to then ride all the way around the park and pick it up, pick your wheelchair or stroller up at the bottom of the, or back up at Main Street. Now, if you were to get on or off at, or if you were to get on at any of the other 3 stops, so New Orleans Square, Toontown, or Tomorrowland, there are exit ramps that you can take your wheelchair up and down the exit ramps. And in the last train, you can actually board your wheelchair, or you can board your electric vehicle, but you will be asked to exit your wheelchair and the strollers, fold up the strollers. Any height, any age are okay on the railroad, and pregnancy is okay because it is a very slow moving ride. It's about 1 to 2 miles.
1.2 miles.
1.2 miles, sorry, thank you. It's about 1.2 miles all the way around from start to finish on the railroad, and it takes about 18 to 20 minutes, with trains arriving every 5 to 10 minutes. So there are multiple trains. You don't have to wait the entire 18 to 20 minutes. And then the last kind of really fun thing that, if you've not taken the railroad the entire distance around, it's kind of fun to take the railroad just to, if you're tired and you want to get from Main Street down to Small World really quickly, you can hop on it at Main Street and take it to Toontown, because it will tell you, this is the station that services Small World. But there are little cool things along the way. So if you take it from Main Street to New Orleans Square, right at New Orleans Square, you will hear a telegraph typing out a little coded message. And so it's kind of a little fun thing that you can hear. If you take it a little bit further, you go behind Tom Sawyer's Island and behind the Rivers of America, and you see a little a log house on fire. Back when they were, just a little while ago, when they were building Galaxy's Edge, thank you. You could see the makings of that, and that was really cool. When we went just last year, we were taking pictures of that and watching them build that. You go behind Autopia as you head into Tomorrowland. You can wave to the kids driving on Autopia. And then from Tomorrowland to back to Main Street, which a lot of people don't finish that ride, because again, they get off at Tomorrowland. You actually go through this tunnel and you see the Grand Canyon as it is today, and then you see the Grand Canyon as it was hundreds and thousands of years ago, and you see dinosaurs, and it's just a really cool little experience, and it's cool and fun for little kids, and it's cool temperature wise. If you're in a hot day, you get this little break from the heat for a few minutes. So just something I would encourage you to do. It's a fun little ride, and it's a fun way to get out of the heat for a few minutes and get off your feet. And one of my favorite experiences and one of my favorite family traditions. Yeah,
it's great. The Disneyland Railroad is, if you look into it and listen more to the history of Walt Disney and what he loved, I mean, his whole thing was railroads and he wanted to incorporate that. He built his own miniature railroad in his backyard.
His daughters, right?
Yeah, and I remember his wife was upset about it.
Yeah.
But so his love was railroads, and so there's a lot of history, a lot of meaning, a lot of real deep background information on the Disneyland Railroad. It's fantastic. So highly recommend it. Definitely do that. You don't do it religiously like my wife likes to do, but definitely try it out. And again, it's kind of nice to get off your feet, and you could take it to get to another place in the park. It's really great. So as far as that goes, the Main Street vehicles are very similar to that in their mission. They're just like a harking back to the old days. Early 19th century transportation. So the Main Street vehicles, you've seen them. They're either a horse-drawn carriage or a trolley, I guess you could call it. And there's people that know all the drivers. I'm not that deep into it, so I'll just admit that. But then they know all the drivers and they know all the horses, and they know when there's a new horse, and so that you can get this whole mythos of the Main Street vehicles. So the horse-drawn streetcar is great. There's an old classic car. It's called a jitney, and that's just an open air vehicle you can sit in, and maybe 4 or 5 people can sit in at once. There's the classic fire engine, which is always a lot of fun, and again, maybe 10 people can fit in there. And then there's the omnibus, which is an open air double decker bus. And I think like 40 people can fit in those.
And that's fun for the kids to climb up on the second deck and ride that one.
And a lot of times the drivers are super entertaining and they're a lot of fun. Just like any cast member at Disney, they go out of their way to just make sure you're having a fun and a magical time. Now honestly, we in our history going to Disneyland haven't done much in the way of these Main Street vehicles, but we've done them a couple times just to, if nothing else, to say that we've done them and to enjoy them and to feel what some people get really excited about and passionate about. And I think they're great. And honestly, I think they're cute, and they make Main Street really just feel authentic and real. So a couple things to know. Same as the train. The railroad, there's don't worry about pregnancy. You're okay with that. There's no wheelchair access. You'd have to fold it and stow it in the vehicle. So you have to be able to be ambulatory. You have to be able to walk. You have to be able to walk yourself. No age or height restrictions. So just have fun with that. One thing also just to note is just depending on the day, typically though, the Main Street vehicles only operate for the first part of the day. So I looked at today's schedule here in mid-September, and they close at 3:30 in the afternoon. So just be aware of that. That's also something to be aware of.
And I would imagine it's because that's when the parades start. The parades start, the bands marching down the street, that type of thing. And so the street gets really, really crowded down Main Street, and there's just not a place for them to drive. So.
And also one thing to note, just as a final on this, is that they only allow you technically to ride one way. So they ask you to get off. I don't know that they would fight you very hard on that if you wanted to ride it around.
Depends off there's a line.
But that's not the point of it. The point of it is to just experience it and get from Main Street. The 2 stops are Main Street right by City Hall, and then the other one's right in front of the Sleeping Beauty's castle at the end of the hub. So those are the 2 main stops. And I think they vary a little bit where they pick up and drop off, but those are the main areas. And as pedestrians, as people that are walking around on Main Street, always be careful and be aware of these Main Street vehicles. The cast members that are driving are very vocal, and they like to honk their horn to make sure that people are aware they're coming. They don't make a lot of noise, and you have to be very aware, and it gets really crowded on Main Street, and people are paying attention to the sights and the sounds, and they're watching their kids, or they're not watching their kids. I don't know. Yeah. So just be aware and be safe. And also what I understand too is they don't like you touching the horses. So no, just walking up and petting them. So just be aware of that. But again, just another element to Disneyland, especially Main Street, where they want to bring the magic and they want to bring you back to that time where Main Street is a real place. Where Walt Disney saw himself and fancied himself in that part of history, and I think that's amazing. And one other thing I wanted to mention, as she was describing the railroad, the fact that it's over a mile long, that just amazes me, because I always picture Disneyland being like this tiny little place, but like this track goes around the park, pretty much circles the whole thing. Well, just Disneyland, right? It doesn't even go into California Adventure. It doesn't go around Star Wars Land, but it's a mile long. Like that for whatever reason, when we looked that up and when she said it, it just kind of dawned on me. I'm like, wow. So again, just these are a couple of the things we wanted to start with. We kind of just walk through the park with you and discuss in these next few videos, some of the neat things about these rides and attractions. Our next video, next week, we're going to walk up Main Street like we did today, and then we're going to hang a right into Tomorrowland. So we're going to start off in Tomorrowland and start talking about some of the rides and attractions at Tomorrowland. If you have any requests or any details you want to add. Maybe there's something we missed or something we misspoke on. Put it in the comments below, because we're always happy to learn, and we may not get everything right. We definitely have and I've said this before, we have our kind of way of doing Disney, and so there's some things we may not look at the same way maybe you do. So please comment below. Like this video, subscribe if you want to get notified, hit the bell, and we'll see you guys. Friday will be my next video, but the next part of this series will be on next Monday, and we'll talk about rides in Tomorrowland. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
I'm always glad you're here. Thank you, guys, and we will talk to you next time. Have a good week.
Bye.